movie, you wake up as an LGBTQ activist. You wake up knowing two things. The world needs change, and most people are perfectly comfortable with it staying exactly the same. Nobody handed you this. There's no badge, no ceremony, no official moment where someone taps you on the shoulder and says, "You're it now." You just started paying attention. Maybe it was a headline, maybe it was someone you love, or maybe it was a hospital waiting room where they wouldn't let your partner through the door. You're not a hero. Not yet. The reality, what this job actually is. You don't fight with weapons here. You are fighting with paperwork, press releases, and phone calls that go unreturned for 3 weeks and you call again anyways. Activism is not something that the movies show you. It isn't slow motion in dramatic lighting. Most of it is you are sitting in a government building waiting for a meeting with a junior staffer who doesn't make eye contact. You are writing an email that gets 12 views. You are drafting a policy recommendation nobody asked for. Still, you are showing up to the next meeting anyway. The real game is what you do the morning after. You start learning acronyms fast, because for the people you're fighting for, the difference between the right law and the wrong one is not abstract, it is their actual daily life. And then you find the machine, organizations that have been doing this work for decades, quietly, while everyone else kept moving. You didn't know they existed until you needed them. Now, you can't imagine the fight without them. The Human Rights Campaign is one of the first names you learn. Over 3.6 million members and supporters. Founded in 1980, that's a movement with real infrastructure, with lobbyists, and with a long-term strategy. They don't just march and go home. They push legislation in Congress, they run public education campaigns, and they build the grassroots pressure that makes politicians uncomfortable enough to actually move. Their entire purpose comes down to one thing that every LGBTQ person should be able to live freely and without fear of discrimination. That's the whole thing. Sounds simple. The legislation matters, the organizing matters, and the steady, unsexy behind-the-scenes work is exactly what makes the visible moments possible. If you want more of the stories they don't teach in school, the ones that actually changed things, then subscribe right now, because we're just getting started and it only gets bigger from here. The media battlefield, GLAAD, and the story you tell. You figure out early that the fight doesn't live only in courtrooms and Congress, it lives in every sentence a journalist writes, every word choice in a news segment, and every film that gets it wrong and keeps getting it wrong for 20 years. Words do quiet damage. Across years, generations, long before anyone's in a courtroom. GLAAD exists because of exactly that. Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation. They watch the media the way a hawk watches a field. Films, news coverage, television, interviews. If the representation is inaccurate, harmful, or just plain lazy, then they say something. They give journalists and media professionals the actual tools to get it right. They support LGBTQ storytelling. They track the data and publish what they find. Their job is keeping the narrative honest. You start to understand something nobody tells you at the start. Public opinion doesn't flip because of one dramatic moment. It shifts because of a quiet thousand ones, a word choice, a character in a show, and a documentary. A single interview done right instead of wrong. GLAAD is inside all of those moments, pushing the needle quietly, consistently. The scale bigger than you thought. You assumed this was mostly an American conversation. Then you looked at the actual map. ILGA World, the International Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, and Trans and Intersex Association, a global federation of over 1,600 organizations, active in more than 150 countries. This is not a trend or some single political movement that comes and goes. This is a decades-long global project with thousands of moving pieces running at the same time across every time zone. Then there's IGLYO, the International LGBTQI Youth and Student Organization. Their focus is specifically young people, students who are figuring out who they are while laws are being written that will directly shape their lives. IGLYO gives them a platform, a structure, somewhere to actually stand. You understand and learn about them also. You also try to find connections. Then you understand that local and community organizations fill in the rest. Mental health support, youth resources, groups focused on intersectional identities. The machine has a lot of parts and most of them are invisible from the outside. And before any of these organizations existed, you realize that people were doing this with absolutely nothing. You study and get to know about people like Henry Gerber, who founded the first American gay rights organization, the Society of Human Rights, in 1924. And also about Harry Hay, co-founded the Mattachine Society, who one of the first lasting gay rights organizations in the US. You also get inspired from them. The names, people who just kept going. You start reading the history, and the history is full of people who kept moving when everything around them said stop and study and understand about all the people and what they did, like Marsha P. Johnson, black transgender activist, drag performer, central to the Stonewall Uprising of 1969. She co-founded STAR, Straight Transvestite Action Revolutionaries, to support homeless LGBTQ youth and sex workers in New York City. She wasn't sitting around waiting for someone to handle it. Sylvia Rivera co-founded STAR with her, transgender Latina activist. She fought specifically for trans-inclusive policies because she watched the broader movement quietly leave trans people behind. Harvey Milk, the first openly gay elected official in California. He championed anti-discrimination laws. He didn't just exist in the room, he changed what the room was allowed to decide. Bayard Rustin, gay black civil rights activist. He organized the 1963 March on Washington. He understood that the LGBTQ rights and civil rights movement were the same fight wearing different clothes. Larry Kramer watched his community die during the AIDS crisis and co-founded Gay Men's Health Crisis and ACT UP. He didn't ask nicely. He made noise until the government couldn't look away anymore. Audre Lorde, black lesbian writer and activist. She wrote about what it means when your race, your gender, and your sexuality are all under attack at the same time. She was a key member of the Combahee River Collective, the groundbreaking black feminist organization that laid the foundation for intersectional policies. She didn't separate her fights, she carried them all. Barbara Gittings lobbied to have homosexuality removed as a mental illness classification. She won. That is not a minor footnote. That is how an entire society's understanding of human beings gets rewritten. You realize that these weren't people born into power. Most of them were fighting against institutions that wanted to erase them entirely. They just kept going anyway. You clearly admire these guys. Now, the floor you're standing on. You look at who is carrying it forward today. Sarah McBride became the first openly transgender member of the U.S. Congress. She walked into that building and got to work on inclusive healthcare, family leave, and anti-discrimination policy. Just sat down and started. Laverne Cox uses every platform she has trans rights, healthcare access, anti-violence work. She doesn't limit what she shows up for. Janet Mock advocates for trans visibility, mentorship, and employment opportunities. And she produces media. She understood early what GLAAD understands. The story is part of the fight. You can't separate them. Georgina Beyer in New Zealand served as a transgender mayor and then a member of parliament, advancing human rights and anti-violence policies from inside the system. Not from the outside, from the inside, doing the actual work. Laxmi Narayan Tripathi in India secured legal recognition for the third gender, improved access to housing, education, and health programs for Hijra and trans communities. Legal recognition that simply did not exist, and then she made it exist. Frank Mugisha in Uganda leads advocacy in legal reform and community safety in a country where the personal risk is real and daily. He shows up anyway. This is the work, right now, in offices, courtrooms, parliaments, community centers, anywhere there is a door that shouldn't be open and still isn't. You didn't change the world today. Nobody does it in a day. You moved one thing forward, got one policy shifted, and got one journalist to use the right word. You also connected one person to one resource they couldn't find alone. You are not the ending of this story. You are another piece of that floor. And somewhere, someone you will never meet is standing on it because you showed up. If this got to you, subscribe, drop a like, and come back for the next one. We keep telling the stories that need to be told the right way. I'll see you in the next one.